Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Activities for People Living at Home with Dementia. We are proud to offer this series with funding from the Area Agency on Aging and the United Way of Tarrant County. These programs are recorded and are made available for viewing through a YouTube channel for future use. I am your host for today's activities. Peggy Spear is coming to us from the Amon Carter Museum of American Art. She is bringing us Art of Military. Can't wait to see what she has with her since Memorial Day is next Sunday. Peggy, it's all yours.
Thank you, love. You are exactly right. So we are celebrating Memorial Day a la Amon Carter art style. So let me make this full. Okay. So, going through our collection, we had a lot of different military related artwork, ranging from portraits to military camps during downtime, to scenes of battles, to ships. I mean, we had quite the range of military. So it's kind of all over the map, but military has a lot of different branches. So we're trying to hit what we can hit. So we're out of the gate. We're going to start with our good friend Frederick Remington, and it's an oil on canvas painting entitled "Through the Smoke Sprang the Daring Soldier." So there's a lot. This is, if we know Remington, or if you remember Remington from past discussions, he is quite the storyteller. So let's see if we can start to tell the story that's happening here. And you can shout out what you see or what you think is going on.
These are Union soldiers behind a barricade of some kind.
In the wintertime.
In the wintertime, yeah.
It's a battle.
Yes, in the middle of the battle.
On the right side, there's a fellow who's just been hit and he's raising his arms to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yep.
Maybe so. Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't think he'd be looking like that if he were.
Yeah.
Yes, that one.
It's kind of hard to tell between the snow and the smoke from muskets what is what. I mean, you can imagine, and even in this painting, you can see it's such a blurred vision. So you can imagine on the battlefield, people were having a difficult time. So yeah, he looks like he's been injured. He doesn't have a gun in his hand anymore.
But it looks like it might not be, how I say, if you look at their boots, they're more of a moccasin type of boot.
They are.
So it might be more of a Western theme out in the Indian.
That's true.
Because they've got the fringes on the boots and,
Yeah.
Yes, you're exactly right. This was not Civil War. This was an Indian War. And the title, and there's an alternate title for this artwork, and it's called The Dull Knife Fight. And it was against the Cheyenne, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
The Northern Cheyenne. And the chief of that group of American Indian soldiers, so to speak, the chief's name was Dull Knife. So this particular battle, skirmish, what is often called the fight of Dull Knife.
And at this time, probably they had also had firearms, not just
Yes.
arrows.
Indians did.
Yeah, this was
because I don't see any arrows in the thing, but people are dying.
No.
So
This was 1897 was this battle. So the white trade had been alive and well for many, many decades.
Yeah.
So this particular story, the details surrounding it, when this was originally created, Remington wrote a story with it to tell you what was happening that appeared in the Harper's New Monthly magazine. So this was well circulated. People were interested in these stories because the Northerners, Northeasterners weren't typically going west, and there was that idea of the taming of the Wild West, And so these stories were really popular. Remington was a really good storyteller. So the story he's telling here is about a good friend of his, a Sergeant Carter Johnson, was told Remington of his exploits when he and his cavalry were out west. And so this was in New Mexico. And or excuse me, Nebraska, Fort Robinson, Nebraska. So snow. He said it was his memories of the snow being so thick and so bone chilling were something that really stuck with him, particularly during this battle. And so he's talking about this particular skirmish against the Northern Cheyenne, and it was a 10-day battle that, you know, they were in an area that had all these bluffs. So, you know, one side would advance and then the other side would drop back and then the other side would advance and they would drop back. So it was a lot of cat and mouse happening with these bluffs in this particular battle. On the last day of this battle, at night things would stop happening, understandably so. And then they woke up and they couldn't find the Cheyenne. And so what ended up happening is they moved forward, the Cheyenne advanced, and then they ended up finding each other. And it turned into basically a duel between this Sergeant Carter Johnson and one of the warriors. His name is White Antelope on the American Indian side. And so again, because of the snow and the way that these bluffs were, they would jump out, fire, jump back down, jump out, fire, jump back down. There was a lot of back and forth. And eventually the other soldiers stopped shooting, and it then turned into this duel. So what we're seeing here is when this daring soldier, Sergeant Carter Johnson, sprang out. You can see he has his handgun, and that's when the duel started to happen.
Okay, could you repeat that last thing you said, Peggy?
Yeah, so here, the man in the middle with the red around his neck has jumped up. You can see he has his handgun, and this is now when it turned into that duel between White Antelope and him.
So is Carter Johnson the guy with the pistol?
Yes, there are two men right here with a pistol. This man right here is Johnson.
Okay.
With the rifle.
With the rifle.
Rifle and pistol, yeah. So he's jumped up. He's the daring soldier who's.
Oh, I see. I see the pistol now.
Yes.
His hand it looks like it's in smoke, basically.
Yes.
Smoke or snow. I mean, all of it seems to be contributing to the visibility issue. But yeah, so you can tell, and you can see some of these soldiers are still firing because you can see a hint of what would have been the gunpowder coming out, fire.
Yeah.
But this is when it about changed and it became a duel. What was a battle had then turned into a duel. And so they would fire and then jump back down, fire and jump back down. And eventually Johnson, the man standing here, killed White Antelope and he won.
Okay.
And so I'm looking at my notes. And so this is that story that it's told, and it's really speaking to the bravery. Remington is really highlighting the bravery of the soldiers, but it needed to be noted that Johnson, the sergeant of this battle, was really appalled at how this whole battle played out, because it was a lot of innocent people and women and children were killed in this battle.
Wow.
And so it's not at all speaking to that. We do not see at all any American Indians. But, with details that Steve had picked up on, it was in some place that probably wasn't the Northeast. It got fringe on. It's still out in what is a wild area, unsettled area. It's a nod to the American Indian presence, but it does not include them at all. And the helpless victims were something that really did not sit well with this particular sergeant. So you would never know that from looking at this, but this is something that the sergeant was pretty adamant about talking about.
Really great story, Peggy.
Yeah, that was a great story.
Oh God, thanks. I'm not a storyteller, but
So,
it's such a beautiful artwork. Story aside, I think, in my opinion, stories always make the artwork more appealing.
okay.
But the story aside, it really is such a beautiful artwork. You get a sense of, well, what do you feel when you look at this? What feelings do you get when you see this?
Danger.
Courageous, I think.
Yeah,
Courageous.
courageous.
Yes.
Oh, that's that danger.
Danger.
Yeah.
I get a sense of the cold.
Cold,
I feel
yes.
that cold.
Yeah.
And Remington was really good at creating a mood with the environment. I mean, you can feel, you almost don't know top from bottom with how that sky and smoke and snow all kind of blended together. And then with those rocks, you almost get the sense of how cold they might feel or how slick they might be, given their shoe. I mean, like, you feel like you might be in that scenario with them, kind of, because we're back in the trenches with them.
So Steve, let me ask you a question. Does this
Sure.
appear in the snow, the rifle that's laying on the ground here, does it look like it's a repeating rifle, like a Winchester or something?
I cannot see enough detail, but I think from the stock it would be.
Yeah.
If it was not, well, it might not be a Winchester. I'm trying to think. The military didn't use Winchester. I think they used Henry's at this point in time.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and there. But I was going to make a comment. I said, from my study, a lot of the officers were very disillusioned by the politics of Washington and how to treat the Indians. They did not agree with the policy. They had to follow it because they were the military, but they did not agree with a lot of the things that the politicians were saying you must do.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, Steve. Thank you.
It was a very moral dilemma for them.
It's a shame that didn't catch on back then.
Yeah.
So,
Now, Peggy, I came in a little late. Where is this taking place?
In Nebraska, outside of a military fort in Nebraska.
Okay.
I've been to that fort.
Oh,
it's a very accurate topography in that area.
Okay. Pretty
a
rocky.
lot of bluffs and things like that. Yeah.
So Peggy, I have a question for you, and I see this in most of the paintings of war scenes. There's a shockingly missing blood. There's no blood to be seen.
There's a little blood here.
Yes.
But you're right. I generally, we can assume this is a dead, if not close to dead, soldier.
Yeah.
Remington was not graphic in nature.
Okay.
And it was, some of the mindset at the time is, well, we don't want to show, you can go either way. I don't want to show a really wounded soldier because then it shows that the American Indians might be capable of doing this to us and we're stronger than them. Or it was also for the mass public, so there was no need maybe to get as violent or grotesque with something that was for all audiences.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
He could take
Does anybody else get the sense that the guy going over the top is the oldest guy there?
Yeah.
He's got gray hair?
Yes.
Yeah.
He looks like the oldest man in the picture.
Even though he's not the senior officer, probably the fellow standing up with the firearm is a senior officer with the pistol.
Well,
he was a
sergeant.
He was a senior enlisted officer. And so he had probably seen a lot of things and he was very disgusted with what was happening.
Yeah, I don't know enough about Sergeant Carter Johnson to say who else. And it was the 10th Cavalry in New Mexico that then was up in Nebraska. So I don't know enough about that.
See, what strikes me is we used to say there are old soldiers and there are bold soldiers, but there are no old, bold soldiers.
Right.
That's true. Right. Oh, and then he lived to see another day because he ended up winning the duel. So
Yeah.
Hey, Phil.
so this is one that I don't think it's on view right now, but it's usually out in our galleries, and so it's pretty big. It's 27 inches by 40 inches, so it really it sucks you in. It tells the story a la Remington's MO. So we're going to leave this military battle scene to some downtime.
Maybe.
So what do we see here?
A stereopticon picture.
Yep. Mhm.
3D picture.
Yeah.
And
They're reading letters from home.
Yes, they're reading them. Yes.
Letters sewing.
Okay, so this man right here, this man right here might be reading a letter from home. This guy right here, you have to look a little closer. Can you see what he's doing?
Sewing.
Sewing.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, that's a sewing machine.
It is a sewing machine. So he's repairing what looks to be
Oh,
one of his hats.
Hmm.
And so the title of this is A Sailor's Sewing Day Reminds Him Keenly of Home and Mother, Life on Board a Battleship. So the title gives you a little more context. But
Interesting.
this was, okay, so with some of the stereo graphs that we've looked at in the past, especially ones that are, of national monuments or, landmarks, it gives a little description on the back of what you're actually looking at to give some context of the scene. So this particular one talks about on the flip side of this cardboard, card, it talks about the what each sailor would receive. It was called a comfort. I want to make sure comfort bag. And so in the comfort bag, the Red Cross usually put it together, or other military organizations that were used to support the efforts of military. They would put together these canvas bags, and they weren't large, maybe 10 inches by 13 inches. And inside they would get, kind of like if you were going to camp, the essentials you would need to keep yourself together. So I'm going to list the things just to make sure I don't miss it. So they would get khaki and white color string, number 5 needles, a needle case, medium-sized buttons, both black and white, a thimble, 1 scissors, safety pins, comb, toothbrush, small mirror, handkerchief, pencil, writing pad, envelope, postcard, pocket knife, and some word I wrote that I can't read. So that would be all in their little bags, and it was expected of them to keep their uniforms in great repair. I mean, and anybody in the military, that's always a thing. So on days when they were quiet, this is World War I, they would repair, they had sewing machines on deck, and the soldiers would best attempt try to repair whatever snags or tears they had from the wear and tear on the boat or camp or wherever they were.
So the sailors, there's 2 sailors in the upper right-hand corner. Looks like they're holding something long.
Almost like a sword or saber.
It looks like a sword.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that is. I mean, you get this sense too, like, this isn't a high stress day or situation. I mean, this guy right here kind of looks like he's being a goof for the picture.
Yeah.
Kind of hamming it up. He's, laid back.
Yeah.
Relaxing. And see, you can see the little canvas tote that might have had his sewing needles and thread.
It's interesting that they got a thimble.
Say that again, Martha, I cut you off.
It's interesting that they got a thimble.
Yeah. And it said on the back, so that was like their comfort bag that they would get from the Red Cross. And there were other types of comfort bags that some of the Navy sailors would get, the Navy League specifically in this instance would get bags like that had sweaters, a helmet, mufflets, wristlets, and everything was knitted in yarn. And so women throughout the country, it says on the back, women were expected, even though they weren't on battle lines, they were expected to do what they could from home, which meant knitting all of these things that would then be shipped to the soldiers overseas or on camp or wherever. So whatever color yarn, they were typically like military colored things, but women would just do what they could and get it to these organizations that were designed to support military relief.
Super.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And kind of a happier side of war or military life in this particular one. Something a little more relatable, and it speaks to on the backside about how often these situations, the soldiers would really miss their moms or their wives, and that ability to have somebody kind of take care of them instead of them taking care of themselves.
Yeah, the time frame looks like it's about sometime during World War One.
Yep, you're exactly right. And they're on a battleship, so they were out to sea. All right, so this is another very common realm of art history, are these lithographic, printed portraits of military heroes. So here we're looking at General Zachary Taylor.
Rough and ready.
Rough and ready. And there's a few from this series. He was in several wars, involved in several different wars, but the one that really put him on the map, so to speak, and then really kind of propelled him to be president was the Mexican-American War. So what are some of the things you're observing in this portrait?
I want to know what's in the background.
It looks like troops lined up.
Yes.
Lined up. Formation.
Formation.
You can see troops, you can see tents. So this looks like a camp. This is in Palo Alto. And you can see at the bottom, it lists that it's De La Palma, Monterey, and Buena Vista. So you can see he's in Mexico here. And the palm trees kind of speak to that more exotic land than the United States. That's a common, making someplace look exotic, even though it might not have looked much different than Galveston. You know what I mean, in terms of the trees and stuff like that.
It's quite a hat he's wearing.
That's what I was going to say.
Military uniform is such a thing in the depiction of soldiers. So yeah, I mean, he is decked out here. Feathers, the pointed hat, the epaulette.
I'm gonna have to leave. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, Steve.
Bye. Bye.
The white gloves. Yeah, he is very dressed for now. It doesn't look like they're in battle, so this is probably a little more kept than he would look in battle.
Yeah.
Last Thursday, we had Fort Worth Museum of Science and History, and there was a World War II hat that had feathers on it.
Oh, interesting.
So these look like the same type of feathers.
Okay.
Did they tell anybody else?
I remember it, but I don't remember what they called that.
It was removable.
Yeah.
For one kind of a soldier, you had one kind of feathers, and then they take it off. If you were the top gun, you got the feathers. If you weren't the top gun, you got to look like a shaving brush. Hi, Janine.
You have to remember that generals always had the privilege of kind of designing their own uniform too.
Oh, that's good.
okay.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
That's why you had things like the Ike jacket, that Eisenhower wore.
This feels very colonial to me, considering it was, the mid 1800s. But you can see on his epaulettes, he has stars right here.
Yeah.
He does.
In it, in his hand, he's got, it looks like a telescope. So,
Oh, yeah.
again, he's looking out in the distance. So this is speaking to his demeanor as a leader. He's got the foresight. He's looking out for everyone. That kind of he looks older here. You can see gray hair, kind of wrinkled skin. Again, this isn't his first rodeo, so that gives him some clout in terms of experience. But also, oh, go ahead.
So right on the left-hand side above the cannon, it looks like there's cavalry soldiers. And the way he's painted them, they've all lined up. And that's so much, there's really a lot of detail in that lineup.
Looks as if they're all sitting on the horse.
Yeah, they're all sitting on the horse. Detail in that it shows there's a lot of numbers, but they're all kind of the same version of itself.
Yeah.
So you're getting the idea of the number of people he was responsible for.
Yeah,
exactly. You don't know them from Adam. And they're not the important part of the narrative. It's really that this man was responsible for leading these troops to war. And so, and another thing too, how you talk about they're kind of in the background. This is was popular at one point. He kind of towers over the land. He's towering over his troops. It's over the mountains even. I mean, he looks larger than life the way that he's being presented here. So there's this kind of this understanding that like he is a force to reckon with. He is powerful. He is in control, and that often is a way people in power were depicted. That the other things around him were smaller, unimpressive compared to what the focal point is. So we're going to leave this lithograph, and we're moving to photographic portrait, which we have a lot of these in our collection. Starting from daguerreotypes, which were the first types of photographs, all the way through to current day. Military portraits are an important type of art. Portraits in general, but military portraits can tell you so much about a person because of their uniform. So this is an example. And what might you learn about this man just from looking at him?
I'm interested to see the leather strap that goes through everything.
Yeah.
Is that a gun holster or?
I'm not sure what that is. I think it's
not sure.
What was that, Hans?
He says it's the gun holster.
gun.
Thank you.
I think you can see the stars again on his shoulder.
Yeah, it looks like he's a 2-star general.
And he was awarded, so he served in World War II, or World War I was his, the big war that he was involved in. And he received multiple awards of honor as a result of his participation in military in the war. So this was in 1915, so he received all of those awards afterwards. So, again, with the photograph or this portrait, we don't, at this point in time, this is what his accolades were. And we can't quite see what his bars are.
Yeah.
But in later portraits, you would have been able to see his different medals of distinguished honor. And so it's just, this is a very soft, a very elegant portrait of him. Some military portraits are very cut and dry, the soft edges give it it's pictorialist, so it gives you a kind of a dreamy perception of this man, a hero, which, he very much was, but it's more artistic than if you were to look in a yearbook and say, oh, this is the portrait of Stevenson. I mean, of Henselman. So
it's
he ended
funny
up, oh, go ahead.
It's funny how his eyes are the only thing that's really clear on the picture.
And I if you Google his name, you're able to find, there's a ship named after him too, a naval ship, I believe. So you'll either get the ship or you'll get him. But there are pictures of him when he was much younger, and he looks it's really interesting. His eyes are what is like the link between him as a younger soldier and him as a much older general. So it's very much his defining facial feature in how it's been depicted in the past. So this is not much more on this, just examples of military portraits, but I think a beautiful military portrait. And then this last example I have is just a picture of, it's a postcard actually, of down in San Antonio, some infantry drills that were running on a major field, sort of like the background that we saw here on our President Taylor. We've got things happening in the field. And so this is, again, it's downtime. There was no war that I am aware of happening in 1920. So, you know, just this idea of even in time of peace, the military doesn't sleep. So that's all I got for you today.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yes. Next
Great.
week, the theme is horse racing because it is the third jewel in the Triple Crown. We've got the Belmont Stakes happening next week. So I grew up in Baltimore, and so the Preakness was always such a big deal for us. And so we just grew up loving the Triple Crown. So we're going to look at some pictures we have in our collection of horse racing.
Awesome. Peggy, you're a great storyteller with these pieces of art.
Gosh, I feel like I'm just talking at you all. So if ever I'm talking too much, please tell me. But it was good seeing you all. Enjoy your long weekend, and I will see you all next week, okay?
Thank you,
All
Peggy.
Thank
Thank
you,
Bye,
you too.
friends. Be good.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Peggy.
Thank you.
Sweet. Okay, tomorrow, I guess everybody's gotten their email already. I sent you the wrong thing and then Gail sent you the right thing so that you have your program for tomorrow for the Fort Worth Opera. We've got some really pretty things for tomorrow. Look forward to it.
Okay.
Has everybody gotten their email or is anyone missed?
Yes.
Okay,
No, we got it.
good
Yes.
deal.
Yeah.
All
Thank you.
Oh, you bet. And because we've got Fifth Street Cafe, I'm going to stop the recording and we can roll right into
Okay.
our next one.